Comrades. Some people ask me why I call you my comrades, and I answer in the words of Che Guevara. If you tremble with indignation at every injustice, then you are a comrade of mine. But I also call you my comrades because we are struggling together towards the same political goal. And what is that political goal? It is the national liberation of the Palestinian people, the complete reunification of the people of Palestine with the land of Palestine and their attainment of political self-determination. That's right. Led by the brave and resilient Palestinian resistance, we are at a crucial juncture in this long fight. For 4 months, people like you and I, along with millions around the world, have been taking to the streets. We have courageously been standing up and saying, enough is enough. But comrades, we have to reckon with something, and that is this. Standing up, taking to the streets, waving flags, raising banners, writing letters, posting videos, petitioning our union officials and making statements, having hard conversations with our family and friends, as courageous and noble and noteworthy as it all has been, it is simply not enough. Because we are not fighting for a change of the Australian government, or for higher wages, or for longer breaks. We are not fighting to save higher education, or for a voice to Parliament. We are not fighting, in short, for bourgeois democratic reforms. Who are we fighting? We are fighting Israel. And what is Israel? Israel is, at its core, a war machine. It is a genocidal settler colonial occupation backed by other genocidal settler colonial occupations like Australia and other imperialist nations like France and the United Kingdom. And it is backed by other formerly fascist, or perhaps we should say latently fascist nations like Germany. And most importantly, Israel is backed and will be backed until its dying day by the war machine. The genocidal settler colonial entity built on the backs of African slaves, built on the bloodshed and lands of the native people of Turtle Island, and maintained through constant military aggression and malicious economic and diplomatic intervention. The war machine of all war machines, the United States of America. Israel and the United States of America are two vicious heads of the same wicked serpent, and that serpent is Western imperialism. And the Palestinian people won't achieve national liberation until Western imperialism gets its fangs out of the throats of the Palestinian people and out of the throats and off the lands of all occupied peoples all over the world. In response to South Africa's intervention at the ICJ, Benjamin Netanyahu had this to say in mid-January, quote, "No one will stop us. Not The Hague, not the axis of evil, and no one else. It is possible and necessary to continue until victory, and we will do it." And what does he mean by victory? He means, obviously, because we can see it with our own eyes, the extermination of the Palestinian people and the expansion and consolidation of the Israeli occupation on their lands. Comrades, this man speaks none other than the language of Zionism. And Zionism is a racist ideology with an exterminationist logic. And as long as a Zionist remains a Zionist, no matter what they say, they remain committed to the legitimacy of the genocidal entity of Israel. The Zionists may speak of peace, dialogue, empathy, democracy, but Zionism was cut from the same historical cloth as the ideologies of German and Italian fascism. And fascism's true language is that of power. And power translates crystal clear as blood, fire and capital. Now, settlers living in the so-called liberal democratic West on this continent, in the belly of the beast, in the imperialist core, are not usually spoken to in the language of blood and fire. And even my own peoples, the First Nations peoples of this continent, have not been spoken to en masse in the language of blood and fire, at least not since the last known massacre of Aboriginal people, the Coniston Massacre, where up to 200 people of the Warlpiri and Mudgera and Kadich groups, which are my countrymen and women, were rounded up and slaughtered by pastoralist settlers and colonialists. And that was as long ago as, goodness me, 1928. Shame. So today we in the belly of the beast aren't really fluent in the language of blood and fire, but we are fluent in the language of capital. Or at least we think we are. Certainly our bosses are, the corporations that we work for are, Our banks, our governments and superannuation companies who invest our taxes and our pensions in genocidal warfare are. Capital is the value that we work to create, expressed as money invested in processes of expansion. For capital to expand, grow, increase and create a profit, it must be in motion. It must be moving. Capital must travel. Capital adapts. Capital moves like water. No, capital moves like blood, along arteries, around the whole world. Money is power and capitalists are powerful, but capitalism is weak. Why? Because if capital stops moving, then it cannot be reinvested. No movement, no motion, no growth, no reinvestment, no expansion, no new capital. Great big problem. Now, the worker is the heartbeat of the flow of capital. If the worker stops working, capital stops flowing. When workers make a decision to stop work together, it's called a strike. Very, very effective. That's why the capitalists made it almost entirely illegal. And if the union movement is weak, then the workers can't strike and the capital keeps moving, growing and expanding. But if the worker is the beating heart of the circulation of capital, then contracts are the veins. No veins, no blood flow. No contracts, no circulation of capital. Now, the capital that we are concerned with is the capital that is going to the fascist war machine. So, comrades, what is to be done? In a way, it is simple. No contract that is carrying the lifeblood of capital to and from the Zionist brain of Israel's fascist war machine can be allowed to remain intact. No, that's right. No contract for weapons, no contract for machinery, no contract for minerals, no contract for transport, no contract for tourism, services, no contract for consumer goods. And in the so-called liberal democratic West, our job, by any and all means, is to make it impossible for anyone to contract with Israel. And it won't be achieved with philosophical or moral arguments, with diplomacy, with poetry. It won't be achieved by lawyers or the legislature, because fascism is not a philosophical or a moral or a legal problem. It is a political problem. And political problems require political solutions. And political solutions in the real world, right here, where fascist genocide actually happens, require force. And it is our duty to force corporations to drop their contracts with Israel. That's right. That is our demand, that is our duty, that is our praxis. Without contracts, the vital blood of capital cannot flow to Israel, and without capital, eventually, one day, inshallah, Israel will go down. Yes. So now is the time. Today is the day. We of all nationalities, of all ages, of all genders, of all religions, of all occupations, of all abilities and disabilities are looking each other in the eye and clearly identifying our enemy. We are meeting in our communities, in our unions, in our mosques, in our churches, at our kitchen tables and barbecues during Shabbat, and we are forming clear-sighted, self-organising blocks. And we are preparing and strategising and planning for the next stage of this long, hard, bitter fight. We are saying enough is enough is enough is enough, and we are saying, by any and all means necessary, say it with me, no contracts with Israel!
No contracts with Israel!
No contracts with Israel!
No contracts